Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the UFC and how Max Holloway, the UFC featherweight champion, has verbally agreed to a title fight against Frankie the Answer Edgar, can't even say his name, at UFC 240 at Edmonton. Wow, this is something that I was not completely thrown off guard, but something that I didn't see coming just because Alexander Volkanovski did beat Jose Aldo at UFC 237 on that Rose Namajunas card, so last Saturday, so this most recent card. I'm very shocked. And I just want to go through why I disagree with this fight, just because I do believe Alexander Volkanovski does deserve it over Frankie Edgar. And let's just talk about why real quick. So I'm not, and if you see me looking down, I do have notes down here, so it's not because I'm looking everywhere. I have notes down here. So let's just talk real quick. So Max Holloway, if you guys do not know, is the UFC featherweight champ, and he went up to try and claim the 155 interim belt against Dustin Diamond Poirier, where he lost 49-46, so he lost 4-1. Was not a good fight for Max Holloway. It showed that he was not ready for the power at 155. But before that, he was dominant. He defeated Brian Ortega in fantastic fashion. If you guys know and saw my breakdown video, I called a Max Holloway 4th round TKO. I called it. And he also defeated Jose Aldo twice, and he was on a 13-fight win streak. So Max Holloway was on top of the world before he lost to Dustin Poirier. But he is still the featherweight champ. Now, turning back to Frankie Edgar has been on and off. If you guys know, he beat Cub Swanson. I'm looking down. He lost to Brian Ortega. Then he beat Yair Rodriguez in a terrible fight. Yair Rodriguez got destroyed. Jeremy Stevens, he won against Jeremy, and then he lost to Jose Aldo. So, if you guys know, Frankie Edgar is a veteran in the sport. And before that Brian Ortega fight, Max and Frankie were already supposed to fight until Max had to pull out. So that's why Brian Ortega stepped up, defeated Frankie in the first round, and that's why he was able to claim a title shot against the streaking Max Holloway. This is why I do not think Frankie deserves a title shot over Alexander Volkanovski. Frankie lost 2 fights ago against Brian Ortega in a it wasn't like a controversial decision. It was he got knocked out in the first round. Ortega hit him with an elbow where he was working out of that Philly shell, and then hits him with that left elbow, pressures him, and hits him with an uppercut, which he slept Frankie Edgar. It was a dominant win, and there was no controversy in that. So I don't see how you could give him a win, especially when his last win, which was his last fight, was against Cub Swanson, a guy who's on a 4-fight losing streak. I guess, and Yair Rodriguez was stylistically a great matchup against him, as Yair Rodriguez is a Taekwondo-based stand-up fighter and not a wrestler or a grappler. So Frankie just picked him up, slammed him on his head, and just dominated him. Now, if we look at Alexander Volkanovski, on the other hand, Volkanovski beat Jose Aldo, and Aldo, who almost looked like vintage Aldo, going through Jeremy Stevens in the first and having a perfect right hook, left hook to the body, hitting him right in the kidney, and then dropping him. And then Chad Mendes, that was also a great fight for Alexander Volkanovski, not for Jose Aldo, defeating Mendes by knockout. Darren Elkins is a veteran in the sport. And then he also beat Shane Young, and a lot of people don't know who Shane Young is. But if you do some research on Shane Young, I'm a fan of Shane Young personally. Shane Young is an up-and-coming featherweight fighter. He just fought on that UFC 234 card in Australia. Excuse me. Stylistically, almost fights exactly like Max. He's a pressure fighter. Not as good with his footwork, and he's not as good with technique-wise, but he fights similar to Max, and he did beat Shane Young, and he's also 7-0 in the UFC, and one of the only fighters, it's like 20 fighters, to start off 7-0 in their UFC career. So overall, Alexander Volkanovski, I feel like deserves it just because you beat Aldo, a guy that Frankie could never beat, losing to Aldo twice. So, and Volkanovski beat Aldo dominantly in that decision. Aldo wasn't throwing. Volkanovski was controlling the fight with kicks, leg kicks, and controlling the range, while Aldo just cannot reach him and just cannot get into his rhythm. Chad Mendes, we already know Chad Mendes is a killer. He came back, had one fight after his suspension, and then obviously was given a killer in Alexander Volkanovski and got TKO'd. But he did hurt Volkanovski, but at the end of the day, Alex did come out with the win. So if you're looking at this, are you going to give a guy that's 20-1, who's 7-0 in the UFC, a title shot, who just came off a huge win over the number 1 contender, Jose Aldo? Or do you give it to a guy in Frankie Edgar, whose last win was over a guy who's on a 4-fight losing streak? He lost in the first round in the fight before that, And then the win before the other one, it's a stylistic matchup that's perfect for him. I don't know. I do like Frankie Edgar, and I do think that Frankie does deserve a title shot, but just Volkanovski deserves them more. Volkanovski also has been more active. Frankie hasn't been as active ever since that Ortega loss. I just believe that. Sorry, guys, it's my fault. Somebody ring on the doorbell. It kind of ruined my flow, but let's keep going. So, Frankie in that span, he's fought. Oh my gosh, my hair. Frankie in that span, last time he fought was March 3rd. It's May 2019. March 3rd of 2018. That's over a year span. He's only fought one fight, and his win was again a decision win over a guy that's on a 4-fight losing streak. I'm not saying Cub Swanson's a bad fighter, but he is on a skid, and the momentum is not on his side. So honestly, I think in this situation you have to give it to Alexander Volkanovski, and I don't understand where Sean Shelby they were going with this. I mean, who's Volkanovski going to fight? Is he going to wait for the title? Because Volkanovski's next fight should not be against just a ranked fighter again. It should be for the champ. It should be for the belt. He should not be fighting contenders at this point. He beat the number one contender. If you beat the number one contender, you should be the number one contender. You should be next in line for the belt. There's nobody else in this division that should be above Volkanovski. It shouldn't be Edgar, because Edgar, like I said, I just explained you why it shouldn't be Edgar. It shouldn't be Ortega. Ortega just lost. Zabit isn't ready. He has stamina issues. I can't even talk. I'm talking too fast. Sorry, guys. Stamina issues, cardio issues. He's good for the first 2 rounds, but it's evident in the Brandon Davis side. We saw in the Kyle Bogniak fight. We saw in the Jeremy Stevens fight. He gasses out later in the rounds. He's not ready for him. Just overall, everybody in this division is not ready for Max Holloway, and Max Holloway's pace, stylistically, he kills everybody in that division. I even think Volkanovski's going to have extreme problems against Max. But if there's anybody that could do it, I don't think it will be Frankie. I think it will be Volkanovski if there's a guy to beat Max. And Volkanovski deserves it. 7-0 in the UFC. He's 20-1 overall. Beats the number one contender. Beats Chad Mendes, Shane Young, a guy who fights almost like Max Holloway. Darren Elkins, a UFC veteran. He's come into the sport and he has dominated the UFC so far. So if I'm Sean Shelby and Dana White, I'm saying, why don't we sell this Volkanovski fight? Let's put Max and Volkanovski on that card down the line where Whitaker and Adesanya are fighting. So we could do Whitaker, Adesanya, and this is all in Melbourne. We could do this in Melbourne, because this is where most likely the Whitaker-Adesanya fight is going to be in Melbourne, Australia. So we could have Whitaker Adesanya main event, and then co-main event Max Holloway versus Alexander Volkanovski, because Volkanovski is also from New Zealand. This is perfect. I literally just made a card for you, Dana White. Adesanya, Whitaker for the UFC middleweight championship, and then Max versus Alexander Volkanovski for the featherweight championship on the co-main event in Melbourne, Australia. Volkanovski will have home field advantage, and same with Whitaker and Adesanya. Well, it's a battle for Australia, whatever it is. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with me, or do you guys actually think that Frankie Edgar should be next in line for the UFC featherweight championship? We'll see. If it's true, they'll be fighting at UFC 240, which is in a few months. That's like July 20th or something like that. And either way, I'm cool to see Frankie fight. I like Frankie, and I think it will be a good fight either way. Max always puts on a show. But I do think Volkanovski does deserve it over Frankie, and I don't think Alex should take a fight unless it's Max Holloway. Or if Frankie beats Frankie, whoever's the champ, that's who Alexander Volkanovski should be fighting. So give me your opinion, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos in the future. See you guys later.